Go no blur on this one. There you go. Okay, hair's
Nice.
good. This is being recorded, so this is
Yeah.
how like people get set up for this, right? That's how it's
Yeah,
supposed to work.
absolutely. I'm glad you let people into your world a little bit more
Yeah, yeah.
versus your blur, right? So thanks for unblurring.
Yeah, that's a sofa that I never use that I bought about 2 years ago, and I think I've sat on it 3 times, and I hate it. So that's my background.
And I get to see half of your degree thanks to the glare back there. So
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
I assume you got half of an education. That's what that means.
I would say that I'm basically half a CPA because I don't do my own taxes. So it's like, there you go. It's actually very reminiscent of how I am as a CPA.
That's true. That's perfect. Okay, I'll remember that going forward. I'm actually half of a CPA, not all
Yeah.
of a CPA.
Yeah. I'm half, Kyle's half, and together we make one. So it's kind of like I'm gonna age myself here, but what is it, Captain Planet?
There you go.
I'm Earth, you're wind, someone else's fire. Yeah.
Perfect. Together we combine to become a single CPA that still doesn't do taxes.
This is great. Well, there's absolutely no segue that I can actually come up with that's going to take us from what we're just talking from Captain Planet to streamlining your year-end financial close using automation and efficiency. It's probably up there with your dentist analogy from last week, but we're just going to roll with it.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
that is what we do. Anyways, okay. So clearly people are like, shut up. The 4 people that are watching this video on a weekly basis are like, man, these guys need to like talk about something else outside of year end. So good news for them. We're not doing that. And we're going to keep talking about year end because guess what? It's like a month away. So you're going to hear us talk about it until probably year end. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. We're also going to talk about it after year end. Just spoiler alert too. So it's lots of entertainment coming from us.
Yeah.
I know.
Variety of content. I would be remiss if I didn't say, make sure to like and subscribe. I'm kidding. This isn't actually a YouTube video, but I've always wanted to say that.
Yeah,
So
but this week is your show, man. I feel like we always talk about all the nitty-gritty and all the relatively boring technical stuff when it comes to accounting and the things that you need to do to prepare yourself and your people to make it happen, all of which is really important, right? But now we're finally digging into some of the things that you can use on top of that, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
technology and ways to be efficient. And if there's anybody that screams technology and efficiency in my mind at Zeroed In, that would be Mr. John Ikos over here. So I'm glad. I bet you're stoked to chat all through this entire cast.
I have been waiting patiently because, as for those of you that know me, I'm not a technical accountant. I don't know anything about technical. I mean, that's not true. I know a little bit about technical accounting, but
He knows he hates it. That's what.
yeah, I know who to refer you to when you present me with a technical accounting topic, and I think that is my biggest strength in technical accounting.
Absolutely.
But we're not here for that. So, all right, okay. So let's kind of talk about like year end, right? And so I'm a big proponent of automation, efficiency. I like to work smarter and not harder. I'm sure my previous employers are like nodding their head, not that they're listening to this video, but like, yeah, we knew that. And so, here's the problem. Every company, most of the companies that we've been a part of, that we work with, are littered with challenges, right? Whether it's manual errors, whether it's manual entries, whether it's like hard coding things in Excel workbooks, whether it's data that's being siloed, tight deadlines, unrealistic deadlines. Like there's so many things that companies do that I think put unnecessary pressure that if they just spent a little bit more time on the front end, and I say this a lot, they would save themselves so much time on the back end. So that's essentially what we're going to be kind of talking about is ways to kind of streamline your year-end process. Because if you're living in 2024 and you're still doing things manually, the problem is probably you. Let's be honest, right? So there's enough tools out there that I think That doesn't need to happen anymore.
Yeah. And I think it's good to just kind of like tie into, perspective of like, think about when we started, right? And like, our company, our business, and, it's just you and maybe a few transactions and things like that. You're always doing that like cost benefit analysis, right? Like, do I need to go in and like get this software or this tool, or can I do it on my own because it's, low volume, right? And so, when you're kicking off, you don't necessarily need just all of the bells and whistles that come with technology, right? It's, you probably can do a lot of these things on, an Excel spreadsheet. I would not recommend like stick with something like QBO right off the bat. I would say that's like the exception when I think about it. But, you don't need to be going out and, buying a huge, awesome automation tool that's built for like, 300 leases or something like that, right? You might not even have a lease. It doesn't even matter. So, I always think about it in that way. It's like at that time, it just doesn't make any sense. But as things get more complex, as they get crazier to handle, and you don't even notice that that's happening, right? Because it's almost that like, here's the analogy for you, John. It's like that that frog in a pot of boiling water, right? Like you're not seeing what's stacking up around you until it gets really, really messy, really, really fast. And that unfortunate time that you realize that tends to be when you're starting to go into things like audits in US GAAP, right?
Yep. Yep. No, that's 100% true. And I think that's also the worst time for it to happen as everything's bubbling up and things become more timely, right? You have tighter deadlines, you have capacity issues, people are starting to get burnt out. Like anything can happen. And we've been there where they're like, oh, our controller just left. Our accounting manager is gone. Like we have to come in there and basically play support. And they didn't have to get to that point. They could have actually like done a little bit of pre-work, kind of started to get this done prior to year end to avoid the burnout, to avoid the high stress. But again, I don't want to say that most people are short-sighted in that sense, but I just feel like people are just so caught up with their day jobs that they forget that there's this like big looming thing that is coming, and it happens every year. So it's not a surprise. But I think it's more like out of sight, out of mind. So I think the way that I kind of want to attack this today is maybe kind of break it up into, I'll call it like two big chunks. Like we're not going to really focus on like large, big public companies, mainly because that's just not our like ideal client. And I'm sure they have most of their stuff buttoned up probably a little bit better than, the smaller companies, but I'll kind of break it out into two companies or two types of companies. I'll do the startup, like true startup, let's say like $5 million top line revenue or less, and then 5 million and above, right? Maybe up to like 200 million or something. If you are a small company and you basically have $5 million of top line revenue or less, your stack is going to be your tech stack, your automation stack, your efficiency stack is going to be pretty simple. You're going to have a ERP system in QBO. If you really want to, get Sage or NetSuite, you can, but like, honestly, you don't really need it for 5 million or less. You're going to be using tools like Excel, Google Sheets. But like, honestly, you don't really need a lot more than that. Like that's going to be good enough. If you have to go through an audit, you're already going to get dinged on the fact that you don't have like a true ERP system. So it's not like it matters that, oh, you have all these other compensating controls. Like the fact that QBO, anyone can post, there's no review. Like, sorry, like you're going to get like a significant deficiency. I think or is it a material weakness?
Yeah, it often gets to the extent of a material weakness. I know we'll chat about that on future podcasts too, but yeah. It's to be aware of that.
Yep. Okay. So like just right off the bat, like you're going to get dinged, but that's okay, right? Because people expect that from you. And so, okay, you have QBO, there's some automation in QBO, there's, automatic rules, there's matching, they're starting to kind of roll out this like AI feature that you can like kind of do like a bill.com-ish, upload your bills and it'll kind of help, extract that using OCR technology. But like, okay, that's good, right? That's a good start. But like, let's maybe like dive into Excel because I think people underutilize Excel a little bit. And so there's no compensating controls within Excel. It's not like, you can have anything in there that would like pass an audit, but because of the automation and efficiency gains there, I think, it warrants a little bit of a deep dive. So maybe we can, I really would just want to focus on like Power Query. So Power Query is, a tool that's built within Microsoft Excel that I don't know if a lot of people utilize to its fullest extent. And so I'm not going to go down like the rabbit hole here, but Power Query in a nutshell is a tool used to do ETL, extract, transform, and I should probably know the load. There you go. Thank you. Saved me. Data, right? And so what it's doing is it's taking data from one source, bringing it into Power Query, and then you're able to basically manipulate it however you want. And then the end result is some kind of export that goes into your Excel file. Most people would think, oh, okay, got it. So I just need like a database that is like a Salesforce database or QBO, and I can just, peg it to that, pull in the data. Yes, you can do that, but like that's not how we use it to automate things. It can also go and like extract data from like an Excel file and from like a different Excel file and bring it in. And then you start to like automate the way that it's filtering, that it's manipulating the data. And I think where we've used it, just to give you an example, because I feel like the hypothetical is like, it's maybe a little bit hard to follow, is when we first started Zeroed In, we're a small company, month close took me about a day to get through, like true month close, most of the recons. And I was like, why is it taking so long? We're like, we have like 20 transactions a month. Like this is absurd. Using Power Query, I'm able to basically generate financial statements automatically within about 15 minutes and basically do my budget versus actual variance within about another 15 minutes. And the whole process probably takes about an hour to go from start to finish. And it's because I've set all of these automations, these tools, I've set up the workbooks correctly. And so if you do that right, you get a 7-hour a month gain. That's just one specific example for us. But we've done that exact same type of work for our clients where we've taken a super manual process and automated certain steps to go from, and I kid you not, this is a true story on one of our clients, like 30 hours a month to 15 minutes a month. So you're telling me like that's not like a really good efficiency gain? Like, of course it is. Like you'd be silly to not want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to add on to that, because I think that's really important, is, also just thinking about the accuracy side of it, right? It's so, a lot of people worry about things being done in Excel spreadsheets, understandably, right? Because it involves a lot of manual input. I think, the way that this works is you're removing a lot of that manual input, right? No longer are you taking something from another spreadsheet and copy pasting and, maybe you get the wrong thing on the wrong line. That really cuts out a lot of it and just, adds automation to it where that's automatically getting transferred, right? And so it not only does a massive amount of efficiency there, but it's also increasing the accuracy because you're not, you don't have as many manual errors, or you're not fat fingering something accidentally.
Yeah, you're basically programming, but you're using like a somewhat user-friendly UI to be able to write that code on the back end and then manipulate the data accordingly. So if things aren't as they would expect, if you misspelled something and then you have a filter that's like filter for this, it's going to flag it out as an error because it's looking for that specific thing. So it's like, it really is a good like control check. Like again, not controls in the sense of like audit controls, but like your own personal control check, like, okay, got it. This is working every month. It's automated. And then obviously you want to build in checks and balances and everything that you do. I think that's the number one thing, that if you're going to use Power Query, just like when you use AI, do not just trust what comes out of it, please.
Yeah. And maybe a good note to have there for anyone listening is, right, I think you always hear about this new software and about, the type of learning that goes into it, right? What's the cost when it comes to, dollars and, effort, time and effort, right? And so maybe just talk about that really quick of, what it takes to get and learn Power Query.
Yeah. So Power Query, unfortunately, is Microsoft's expensive product. I think it's at $0 and it comes free with Microsoft Excel. So, the barrier to entry is really high, obviously. But no, all jokes aside, most people don't even know that it's actually in there. It's not even called Power Query. It's called like Get and Transform. And so you're going to find it within the data section of Excel. And if there's plenty of videos out there, so I'm not going to walk through like how to use it. There's a million YouTube videos, but I will tell you that if you are struggling with it at all, pull up ChatGPT, see if you want to do XYZ and have it explain to you how to do that in Power Query. I'm pretty good at Power Query and I still use ChatGPT when I'm like, am I able to do this like kind of complex thing? And it's like, yeah, you can. It's just maybe you have to go into like the advanced editor and do a little bit of coding, right? And that's fine. So
yeah. And Microsoft even has tutorials in there that help you learn it, right? Just right out there in the system or in their library.
Yep. Oh yeah. Microsoft's like knowledge base is pretty robust. So I think that there's between that and YouTube, I'm pretty sure you can figure out whatever you're trying to do. I guarantee you it's possible in Power Query. And I'm not going to get into Power Pivot, but that's another big one that they use, and that's more like a consolidating feature. But just know that also exists, and that might be something if you have a ton of data that might be useful. So, anyways,
cool. Yeah. No, great key takeaway there. Anybody that is looking for that type of really highly, I would call highly customizable, automation of moving data between systems or items, really take a look at that, right? And I think it's something that's really benefited us in a major way for us and for our clients. So maybe jumping from that, John, as we think about some of the other, tech items that really could help out here. Let's jump back to year-end close specifically. And some of the tools that people can use when it comes to just managing that month-end close process.
Yeah. So again, let's go back to the different types of companies. So in the startup company, bust out a month-end close checklist. It can be within Excel. It can be in a task list. It could be in Asana and ClickUp in Monday, whatever you guys use to organize all of your items. Have a month-end close checklist. Have a year-end close checklist. Assign things to those people that need to get it done and make sure that you're on track. For a small company, those are like the only 3 tools that I would really recommend is some kind of ERP in QBO, Excel or Google Sheets. And by the way, Google Sheets has something similar, but I'm not going to really kind of go down that rabbit hole because I could talk about that for another 15 minutes. And then obviously, month-end close checklist, whether that's in Excel, whether that's in your task list, software of choice, it doesn't matter. But you have to stay organized and you have to keep the team accountable to those deadlines. I think if you don't do that with your month-end close or your year-end close checklist, that's when things start to drag out and you can kind of lose control pretty quickly.
Yeah. So small accounting teams, right? If it's just you doing it, if it's maybe 1 or 2 other folks, sounds like being able to do that within a spreadsheet is relatively easy to do, right?
Yeah. Yep. And honestly, that's pretty much it. So that's kind of the small companies. So maybe we can kind of shift gears and talk about kind of if you're over 5 million, like what are the tools that I would recommend that are available to you? If you're still, some people will use QBO still. Again, probably not recommended over 5 million. I don't know exactly what that threshold where, Sage Intacct or NetSuite become more robust or more wanted, but that's going to be your step up. You have 2 options basically. There's other software, other ERPs that are coming out that are a little bit more like tech focused. I don't think that they're robust enough to really recommend, and I haven't really tested them out to really recommend them. But Sage and NetSuite are tried and true, and they do a fairly good job of not only reporting on your financials, but they have the necessary controls in place to make sure that you don't get that material weakness.
Yeah.
So,
no, good call, and it's that's very much a cost benefit analysis point, right? Because just to be clear, these NetSuites, these Sage Intacts, I mean, I don't know the pricing perfectly these days, but you're starting to look into those, 5 to 6 figure range of annual fees, right? So it really depends on, how complex your organization is getting, right? If you are starting to fall into multiple entities, if you're starting to fall into, significant transactions, right? If you just have a ton of transactions every
Yeah.
month, seems like those are two like really key items to factors to consider
Yep.
when making that move.
Yep. Agreed. Um, and then going and talking about, okay, so using month-end close checklists, right? There's a bunch of software out there that actually does month-end close checklists for you. So I'll name a couple of the big ones, right? You got companies like Blackline, like Flowcast. We even got introduced to another one this year that I don't know if it's technically out, but I'm still going to give it a quick shout out. Bean is doing their own month-end close checklist too, and trying to compete with Blackline and Flowcast. And all of them are basically doing something very, very similar, right? They're pulling in the data as of a certain date or as of a certain month-end close date, and then comparing that to the workbook that you've attached. And if those two numbers match, it's reconciled, right? Great. Your balance sheet recon matches the software. That's a good sign. But if it doesn't, it'll flag it for you. Or if like something changes within the ERP system, but the recon hasn't been updated, it'll flag it for you. So that's like the beauty of that. And those can get kind of expensive as well. I'd say those are probably 5 or 6 figure items too, on a yearly basis. But the good news is like when you're managing a bigger team, when you're managing a bunch of different reconciliations, you're not going to have time to like go and double check that every time you make a journal entry that the recon has been updated. Like there's automation there, and there's, it's worth its weight in gold. So I would highly recommend you go and look for something like that.
Yeah, yeah, and great note there that, different systems probably are best for different price points, right? So you think about something like a black line, you're going to see that most often at really large, public clients, right? And the bill's going to be pretty high to see that. Flowcast being almost more of that middle player where they're, more accessible. I would say still, probably getting close to that like $10,000 or so mark
Yeah.
on an annual basis. And then, but a lot of these additional solutions out there, right? Full disclosure, we're homies with the Bean team. And so, I just gotta, and we love Anise and the team over there. But,
Not sponsored.
yeah, not sponsored, but we can be. But
Yeah.
but they also have another solution there that does a lot of the same stuff, and it's really, I feel like the pricing is a lot more accessible to folks, right? So maybe
Yeah.
not as many bells as whistles as a Blackline or a Flowcast, but these are different price points for different ranges and sizes of companies that are definitely worth considering and taking a look at, having a conversation, right?
Yeah. 100%. And so the last thing that I know is kind of a pain in the butt for a lot of people is financial reporting. And so there are tools out there like Workiva, like DFIN, and they basically help with the financial reporting process, automating that, creating some efficiencies there. You know, again, we're not going to dive in super deep, but putting together a set of financial statements is a ton of work. There's a lot of people that have to be involved there. Sometimes there's sensitive data, sometimes there isn't sensitive data, and having a software that can kind of help manage and control that process is incredibly valuable. And so I would recommend that if you're looking for something outside of Word, because I've been a part of clients that, you do everything in Word and then they have one small change and it filters through the entire set of finance. You have to go and change the balance on the income statement, and then you have to go, change it in the note, and like then there's rounding errors and all this stuff. And man, it can become such a nuisance, and adjustments happen all the time. And so the good news is that there is software out there that can help you essentially build all that. It's basically like glorified Excel, or Excel with Excel in Word with controls. And so I would definitely recommend people go and look at DFIN or Workiva. And again, Workiva definitely expensive, probably for bigger public companies. DFIN a little bit less expensive, more of like that mid-tier option that Kyle was kind of referencing with Flowcast. I'm not sure of their pricing, but I can probably tell you they're not cheap. So
Yeah. And for anyone that's listening to this who maybe this is the first time that you're jumping into a US GAAP audit or review, right? And you're wondering like, what the heck are these guys talking about? I do my, my P&L and my balance sheet and send that out, and that's not too crazy. Just know that, once you get into the world of US GAAP and you're providing full financial statements, it's not just the statements anymore, right? It is quite often a 10 to 20 page document detailing everything when it comes to accounting policies and disclosures on various areas of the business. And that is a shock that comes as a shock to a lot of folks for the first time around. Now, it gets better every year, but that's just for non-publics, right? If anybody's gone and read a 10K or a 10Q, that gets up to hundreds of pages all in, right? So you can imagine how painful of a process it is if you have to change one number and you have to make sure that it flows through everywhere else in the document. So that's really what we're talking about here from a financial reporting perspective. And it really comes in hot and fast when you get into the world of US GAAP.
yeah. And we're definitely running out of time here. And so, but there's other tools out there. There's ones that help with internal controls and stuff like that too. And again, that's typically not I would say client size, but there's definitely tools out there that help with almost anything. So the theme here being, right, like look for ways where you can leverage technology to essentially help de-stress an already incredibly stressful situation. And the best time to implement these tools, just to be very clear, is not during the audit. Please, for the love of God, do not try and like fly the plane and then rebuild the plane as you're flying the plane. We've seen that, not good. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
No, good note there. And honestly, I'm sure maybe you're listening to this and your head's spinning a little bit with a lot of the systems that we've been talking about. If you're ever curious of just kind of like brainstorming, we've seen a lot of different things used in various ways, really well and very poorly. And so, if you ever just want some notes or thoughts on, what are some of these tools for my business specifically, don't hesitate to reach out because, John especially here does very well on the technology side, but the rest of the team has that experience as well. So we're always happy to help.
Yeah, and I would be remiss if we didn't go an entire episode without saying AI. So AI, no, obviously you can use AI for a bunch of different use cases too. But I'm not going to get into it. Just like be creative. Like if you don't know something and you used to Google it, maybe just try AI and see if maybe that it'll help you a little bit more. So actually, I lied. I did say ChatGPT earlier. So we'll just delete this part in post. It's not a big deal. I'll just cut it all together using AI, by the way. So anyways,
I just felt us go up in the search rankings. So thank you for that, John.
Yeah. SEO, AI. Anyways. Yeah. So the moral of the story to kind of wrap up here, right, is just use technology. You get in front of it. Year end is coming. It's a cyclical thing. It's not like it should ever be a surprise. But if you have any questions, if you just want to kind of explore your different options, you can always hit up Zeroed In. We are here to help. So on that note, Kyle, anything else you want to chat on?
No, I think you nailed it, man.
Cool. Well, I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving. And we'll see you on the other side.
Awesome. Thanks all.
Thanks. You didn't do your thing.
Was I supposed to?
That's